right, we're ready to go when you are.
Welcome everyone to our media availability. This is our second week, second day in the second week.
Don't get too comfortable.
And we enjoyed meeting with the press and the media, and also this is live streamed on the internet, and so we welcome questions from those who are watching. And we have a question from those who are watching right to start with, and let's go ahead and address that question.
So he just wanted to know if there were any bills that would cover any of these two topics. The first being if there's a way for constituents to remove elected officials who have betrayed their trust. And the second is, he basically was just saying that Utah County needs to reorganize county government for better representation, for example, mayors or councils.
Okay, great question, and thank you for asking. That goes to the issue of recall. Do we have a recall ability in Utah? And we don't have anything currently in statute, and I don't know of any bill that is addressing the recall issue. And then the second part of that question is with regards to the organization of the county, and we have in statute the ability for the voters to change their government, and there's the three commission structure, and then there's also a mayor and council option, but that would be up to the voters in your specific county. And was it Utah County that he's?
Yes.
So I don't know if that answers your question, but Senator Escamilla or Senator Adams or Senator Knudsen, do you have anything to add?
I think you've covered it.
Yeah, good explanation.
Yeah.
Thank you for sending that in. Questions from the media?
Yeah, on a different issue, this afternoon, a House committee has a hearing on Representative Fossen's bill that would undo the old SB 54 compromise and allow parties to choose how they want to select their nominees. What chances does anything like that have of passing in the Senate?
Senator Adams?
We've dealt with this issue, I think, over the last multiple years. There's a lot going on. There's referendums. I'm not sure that at this point in time we may pick it up again. I think the best thing to do is wait to see what happens in the House, and see if it comes out of the House. And we always wait and see, and when it gets over here, we then try to decide what we're going to do and try to deal with it. But I'd hate to predict it. We have a great group over here.
I think you said it's in Senate committee today. Did you
say?
say?
House committee.
Oh, it's in House committee. Oh, okay.
Right. I might have said the wrong thing.
Oh, okay.
But,
So for us to try to pick it up, I don't think we've talked about it in our caucus, and I think it's, again, an issue that we've talked about a lot over the last few years. And I personally believe in the caucus system. I believe very strongly in the caucus system. I was elected and both appointed through a caucus system, and I think it's served our state very, very well. I think we're one of the best managed states in the country. I believe the caucus system is a reflection of that. But I'm not sure whether we want to pick it up, and I'd hate to speak for the Senate or a caucus right now. Would you, President, or
Yeah,
what do you think?
I don't know where the votes are, but traditionally, over the last couple of years, that hasn't passed the Senate. And so if I was to say, I think I would err on the side that it has some challenges passing through the Senate at this point, but we don't know what the caucus or what both caucuses are feeling at this point.
I think at this point, after all the discussions, we'll just wait to implement what we have. 4 out of our 5 members are running under this new scenario that I think they're focusing right now on that, and let it have a chance to process. And we just don't feel right now it's time for a change at this point. I mean, we want to move forward with what we have.
I think we want to be clear that we don't know, but you can look at some of the history there and determine that it's not a slam dunk approval through the Senate. Let's say that.
Any feeling about wanting to avoid either of the two initiatives on this topic that are out there. Count My Vote, which would kind of cement firmly SB 54, and the other initiative that would overturn it.
I would just say that in my mind, part of the process is we tried to find a legislative compromise to the original initiative. And the fact that another initiative is running makes us wonder a little bit whether we actually had a compromise or not. And there are some that wonder whether that compromise should be upheld, and that's probably a question as to, as the new compromise, excuse me, as the new initiative runs, I don't know what the caucus members are going to think of it. I think there may be some that say, gosh, we had a compromise, and maybe we'll go back and let the, you know, if they really want to run a referendum, why did we compromise? And so I guess that's going to be maybe part of the discussion.
Yeah.
You understand that?
Yeah. Yeah, it's very real.
Did you understand that answer? Is that when we compromised, I think everybody stayed true to the commitments we made during that compromise, but the commitment was, or the initiative wouldn't run. So now it's running, so I think there's a question.
The current version of the Count My Vote would cement that into place. I mean, they're not trying to run a direct primary anymore. They're trying to keep SB 54.
But there's some variations over what's in current statute.
Right. They lower the number of signatures needed and things like that.
Yeah, so I think if it's a fair question to ask, did they live up to the compromise?
Okay.
Yeah. Did you have a comment?
Well, just, you know, there are some ancillary issues there. I'm sorry for coming in late. You might have already talked about these, but we probably need to solve the date for filing and plurality and a couple of those kinds of issues that are out there.
Yeah, we do.
You already talked about
No.
it. So there may be an attempt to solve some of those issues that we really see as needing to be solved.
Okay, further questions?
We have a follow-up question to the earlier question.
Oh, good.
You mentioned
Great.
the different forms of county government that are possible, and the person online wants to know, how does a voter go about, you know, encouraging a different form of government?
Well, by association, I think it would be, it's kind of interesting, but is that something, there's probably an initiative process in the county. I mean, that's a great question, and we might need to come back with a more solid answer, but a citizen initiative probably could work
At the county level.
on a county level. Or you could get the commission, who's there now, although that may be a conflict for them and more difficult to get them to put it on the ballot. That would be my first, not knowing the exact statutes there, so we'll follow up with that and get you something more substantive and get back with you tomorrow. And unless somebody else knows here the details of that.
I think it is by initiative, but and I think you probably go either way, like you said. But I don't know. You better.
So that, if it's an initiative,
we better confirm it.
Yeah, if it's an initiative process, then be collecting signatures and getting enough signatures to get that put on a ballot. Great question.
This morning, the House passed a bill that would extend an earned income tax credit to low-income intergenerational poverty Utahns. It was a pretty slim margin. Just wondering if you have any predictions for how that will fare in the Senate.
Is that was on the floor?
Yes.
Okay.
Was there a fiscal note to it? You know, if there was an amount.
Yeah, there was.
Yes. 6 million?
Oh, is that Representative Elison's?
Or no, this is Representative Westwood, and the Senate sponsor is Senator Vickers.
Oh, okay. Well, I think I'd have a decent chance here. But I think before we start settling on which policies we're going to fund and in tax reform, I think we need to get all all the tax reform questions out there, all the bills, and then balance and weigh each one, and then decide where we're going to go from there.
Probably let Senator Stevenson talk to it a little bit, but I feel like this year, because we do have, and I don't think we have a surplus, and I think he'll talk about that. I think we have enough growth that we need to take care of some still essential services, but it feels like my door is a revolving door with all the requests for appropriations, and it seems like the requests far exceed what we'll be able to even come close to filling. So this will be one of the priorities, and I think it actually runs through the House, and then we'll sit on our board until we decide how much money we can appropriate. So the issue will be the appropriation and probably not the policy on this one. Yeah, I don't know if you got...
I think our caucus is supporting of an EIC, process, especially for intergenerational poverty families, which I think is part of the bigger intergenerational poverty conversation. So I know that bill came from the committee or the commission that's working, but we also want to check on our appropriations as we, especially when we also understand the impact, if there's any impact on the federal law with the new tax reform there, and how that impacts those families. But in concept, I know that's part of one of the family, first family group that came together with bills, and the Women in the Economy Commission also is supporting legislation that protects families that are in that intergenerational poverty group, so we can get them out of poverty. So,
anybody else?
I came in this morning and I heard that a cat escaped at the zoo last night, and we were talking tax reform, and all anyone wants to talk about is the cat that got away.
They found
all the animals, all the rest of the animals are still in place. So
when a tiger would have more nervous than a tiger than
this is a cat.
Like it's a special type of cat. Yeah, he's back home.
Okay.
So, well, that's good. I'm glad they found it.
They did.
That kind of ruined my story. But if you go look at the budget we had last year and look at what executive appropriations looked at in December, and we're within $10 million or $12 million of one-time money where we were a year ago. Now, if that holds, now there's, we put money back into rainy day fund. We paid off buildings that we doubled, that we spread over a 2-year period. And so I think that that really what we're doing is, and again, tax reform is a big piece of what we're doing. But we'll get this sorted out, but we're probably not going to get it sorted out. The cat here won't be back in the pen until the end of the session. We're close to the end of the session. So there's a lot of things going on right now. I am with Senator Adams on this, so my gosh, it seems like we have. There's a lot of days that it's 6 and 8 and 12 people a day looking for appropriations. And it seems like there's an inordinate amount of new programs, or I think I'm going to label them as new, but increased programs for the homeless situation. So that's kind
But you
of an
haven't
overview.
given up on tax reform this year?
I haven't given up on getting the cat back in the pan.
Sometimes the cat gets away and never comes back.
That's right. That's right.
Gone forever.
A few of them find their way home. So.
Okay, we have one more question from one of our viewers, and then we'll conclude and wish everybody a good day. See everyone tomorrow.
Well, let me, here I can read it now. So, Michelle Belante Pratt online asked, our federal government continues to overstep its bounds. In this general session, how is the Senate addressing the problem of federal overreach? Will the Senate leadership strongly urge the senators to support a resolution from the Convention of States project?
Anybody like to take that one?
Oh, that's yours.
Want me to take it? All right. Well, we're already on record as legislature calling on the Congress to call us into a convention to amend the Constitution. We already passed that at the BBA, so to speak. The COS, or Convention of the States Amendment, which is another amendment, has hit kind of a snag here in the Senate because it has term limits in it. I think if it didn't have term limits in it, I think it would pass the Senate. But that term limit part has been a problem. So I don't see us, we didn't pass it last year, I don't see us passing it again. But federal overreach is a huge issue for us, and we're calling on Congress already to call us in to deal with a balanced budget amendment. So I think we're doing our part. We got to get to 34 states, and we think the biggest chance we have right now is with the BBA because they have 27 states, and I think the COS has 12. I think if COS got close, with maybe getting to 20-something, we may be compelled to swallow the issue with term limits, and because of our motivation to clip the overreach of the federal government, and that's a big issue for us.
Talk about your involvement. You're on the board, been very involved. Yeah, I know that's hard for you to do, but I think you just need to talk about what you've done personally there.
Well, I was engaged in a process to create rules and procedures under which a convention would operate. It was a 3-year process. I felt like it was important for states who didn't want to join with us in an Article 5 effort to understand what it would look like, what the convention, how the convention would operate. And so we were successful in Philadelphia last year, creating some rules. COS has also had a less bipartisan, though, effort to bring people together to write rules and how it would operate. And I think it's helped the narrative in other states, and we're seeing other states now looking at this even closer. Yeah, so this has been a big issue for me. I think that the best policy is made on a local level, and hopefully the states will be successful at some point in getting 34 to agree on something we can go to a convention on to pare back the federal overreach. So thank you for that question.
Probably a sidelight of that, you push back on the federal government. I was talking to Representative Noel this morning, and apparently he made me aware of 6, I guess, mandates that the Trump administration pushed back on and repealed, basically dealing with our public lands. One was a grazing requirement, and under the President Obama requirement, you'd have to have 6 inches of stubble or 6 inches of feed. You couldn't graze below that. Now that's just impossible to manage and to do. But in fact, we used to have a picture here, and maybe somewhere in the Senate, that showed a forest fire, and it showed a barbed wire fence. And on one side of the barbed wire fence, it was green and luscious and nothing burnt. And the other side of the barbed wire fence was totally destroyed and black. And it looked like the barbed wire fence actually stopped the fire. But in fact, one side of the fence had been grazed and the other side had not been grazed, and the tall grasses allowed the fire to come up to the fence, and then when it hit the grazing area, it stopped. And these public lands management is a big, big deal. So we're pushing back, and I think the federal government's actually responding right now, so I was happy to see that pushback. I think it was actually Secretary Zinke that initiated that, and he's from Montana. I think he understands these Western lands issues. So I'm really encouraged with what's happening right now. So.
All right, thanks everyone. We'll see you all tomorrow.
All the cows.